Welcome to Prepare for Takeoff. I'm the creator and host, Terry L. Cyrus. We're the podcast dedicated to amplifying Black excellence. Every week, we sit down with a proven professional or rising entrepreneur. This week, we're sitting down with Jerry Holliday, founder of Omega Black Writers. Jerry, what's going on, team?
It's all good. Glad to see you. Appreciate the invite.
Likewise, bro. Well, look, when you came highly recommended, and especially if the bros tell me you got to get this person on the show, and he's the bros, and he's a 70s bro at that. Shout out to all the bros from Lambda chapter, your home chapter. I said, I got to get him on sooner than later. So I'm glad you made some time for us.
Absolutely. I'm glad I could find the time. Glad that you invited me and look forward to this opportunity.
I know you're originally from St. Louis. So what was that like growing up in St. Louis?
Cold. It gets snow, and I have no desires to move home simply because of that. My brother still lives there, but it was typical Midwest growing up with all four seasons. Had a very close-knit family unit. Both my parents were in the home. I had an older brother and two younger sisters, and we lived in a two-family flat where my mom's parents lived downstairs. So I grew up with that environment. My father was an Army veteran. My grandfather was an Army veteran, and my grandfather was born in October of 1890. If you can imagine what Army service was like back in those days. He never talked about it. He never talked about when he was in the Army. Yeah, I'm sure there were some stories. So a very disciplined household, or they tried to be. My father was a very much his own kind of man. He had an air of intimidation about him. And to the point where if I had the few friends I had that I would say, hey, you want to come by? The question would be, is your father home? Yeah, no, we ain't coming.
I can relate to that, man. My dad, his nickname was Sarge. He spent some time in the military. Based on the nickname that he earned, you would have thought he was in the service for 20 plus years, but I think he served maybe 3 years in the military. But I guess it had a profound impact on him as far as how he conducted himself moving forward. If my friends were coming to see me, if they see my dad in the yard, they would turn around. Because my dad, not only would he put me and my brother to work, who's also a bruh, but he would also put the neighborhood friends of mine to work. I figured from St. Louis, man, it's a high concentration of us, which is going to lead me to my next question. But I just wanted to highlight to you that when you think of West Virginia, you don't think of Black people. But where I grew up, there was a very highly concentrated area in the state, in Charleston to be exact, where we had a pretty sizable portion of individuals who look like us. It wasn't like St. Louis, but you weren't made to feel like you were out of place. Now, you didn't have to drive far. You could drive 10 minutes in the wrong direction, and then you'd be like, okay, we made the wrong turn.
Right.
But speaking of which, what was it like growing up with people who look like you throughout your entire childhood?
Well, I absolutely remember as a young child just saying that they were lying on TV when they said Black people were a minority, because I couldn't tell it from my neighborhood or from school, kindergarten to high school, 12th grade. What I saw in terms of my classes was 99.9% people that look like us. And I do remember in high school, there was this one guy that was white, but he was so cool. He just settled in. But other than that, I really didn't have a lot of interaction outside of the neighborhood, outside of my school, and then, when you get into high school, you start I got into athletics, and then you start seeing other people at the track meets and then in the football games. And so you do say, oh, they are out here. But growing up, when I did in the city of St. Louis, and going to a, quote, city school, public school, and there was what we call a PHL, Public High League, and that's where a lot of the athletic excellence was, in terms of if you were going to win a Missouri State championship, you were going to have to go through one of the schools in the Public High League, whether it was baseball, football, track and field. Unfortunately, that's changed so dramatically now because of desegregation, which I think started in the 80s. And I did eventually move back to St. Louis for work, which if I had to do it again, I probably would not take that same course, but that's what happened. And I did go to some high school events, and gosh, I was just flabbergasted about the decline of the level of competition, the talent. A lot of the students that would have been in the city participating in sports, and not only that, scholarly. My valedictorian is a doctor, and in my high school class, there are like four or five doctors. And then just another couple in the class that was in front of me in high school, and another three or four that were in the class behind me. So even though, the resources are not the same, we're not the same, the teachers really did emphasize us getting a good education, which allowed me to go to a major university after high school.
When you think of it as far as how things have changed, now those same kids are being poached out of those neighborhoods and say, hey, you can go to school 20 minutes away. We'll give your kid a stipend, whatever the case may be. And we can get them out of the neighborhood. We can do this, we can do that. You'll have a better chance at higher education based on where our kids tend to matriculate. Now, I guess when you went back, were you seeing some of that and they were like just poaching kids out of those communities, and the resources that you may have had when you were in school, were some of those resources being extracted from some of those communities?
Well, yeah, that does happen and did happen. But my particular high school was changed from, it's Soldan High School, but now it's Soldan International High School. And I was surprised that the school became pretty diverse with a lot of students from actually different countries.
Mm.
Whereas we had been a very competitive school in most sports, we actually became for some period a soccer power.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? We were in soccer game. We didn't even have a soccer team when I was in school. So it was a change.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a challenge. One of the things that I've been doing for many years is working with students. Through the fraternity. My chapter is Kappa Psi chapter in Las Vegas, and kudos. I mean, I do gripe because I have this desire though for excellence and unsettling for anything. But realistically, what we've accomplished as a small local chapter is pretty phenomenal. And, I talk about the things that we have been able to do I've been there in 2005. So the things that we have been able to do since that time, it's a combination of having other like-minded individuals come into the organization and utilizing the talents and contacts that we have. We as an organization, I've been on our scholarship committee since 2010. I was the chair the last 3 to 4 years. But it's not just me. I mean, we have a very active 501c3 that has been very successful in fundraising. And that is possible because we have an outstanding litany of community service programs that we do that every year. We have people that come from much larger chapters and they like, I can't believe how busy you guys are. And despite my griping, I recognize excellence. Just for instance, this past year, we gave out $34,500 in scholarships.
Mm.
We gave
Great.
out 38 last year. And, we've been at that level for 3 or 4 years, and we were well over 20,000 for the previous, going back 10 years. So for us to be able to support that level of giving for our students is actually pretty impressive. But I always thought we could do more.
As you all know, fellow members of our fraternity, we're allergic to mediocrity. We
Right.
pride ourselves on being exceptional. And you are clearly somebody who sets that mark and sets it at a very high standard. And speaking of setting marks and making your mark as a young man, you saw fit to leave St. Louis and for the first time go away, not just to go to college out of state. You went across country. So talk to me about what led to you attending USC and what that transition was like for you.
As I've mentioned many times, if I knew then what I knew now, I wouldn't have done it because I left home as an 18-year-old with an acceptance letter to the University of Southern California and not much else. It wasn't clear where I was going to stay. My tuition was not paid. My parents, I absolutely knew, were not in a position where they could support any tuitions. My father worked 2 jobs as long as I can remember. My mom was a LPN, but she had a GED, and she would leave like one day and we wouldn't see her to the next day. The next evening, she would work 12, 16-hour shifts trying to make sure that we had what we needed. So even though neither parent had a college degree, from the time we were young, my mother would tell us, yeah, y'all going to college. I didn't know what college was or what it meant, but I just bought into it and managed to have decent grades throughout school. It's just decent. I wasn't like I said, our valedictorian. She used to laugh at me because I was in that track. They used to have tracks where you would like track 1, track 2, track 3. And based on scores coming out of middle school, they would place you. Some kind of way I managed to place with the highest level. So I was always in the classes with the eggheads, and I never considered myself an egghead. I'll tell you how odd it was. I played football and ran track for 4 years, and I never had a teammate in any class that I ever took in high school. Not a single one. And I just kind of say, how come they're not in my class? They're just not.
Right.
I enjoyed the sports. I was a late starter until my freshman year in high school. I really hadn't played any organized sports. And then I decided I was going to go out for our B team, as it was called, as a freshman. And then I, ran track, and I wasn't very good. But, by the time I finished, I was decent. I did get, a couple of coaches from colleges called me about coming. I remember this guy from SIU. God, he was huge. He was like 6'5", 300 pounds. And I'm looking at this guy, and he's like, yeah, I've heard some good things about you. Tell me about yourself, and blah, blah, blah. He was talking to my coach, my football coach, who brought me in to talk with him. And, I had another coach call me up. But, I once I got my acceptance out there, I just kind of wasn't looking any place else. Just the idea of going away just was intriguing to me because I'd never really been anywhere, period. I mean, we used to drive up to Chicago to see my father's siblings, my aunts and uncles. But it was always a drive. We never flew. Like I said, I'd never been on a plane until I left for college. Yeah, like I said, if I knew then what I knew now, and if I'd been honest with my parents, they would have like, no, you can't go.
Right.
When we were at the airport, my mother was kind of like clingy, trying to get on the plane, and she's like, and my father said, you're the one who said that boy could go away, so go ahead and let him go.
Go ahead and let him go. So once you got to LA, what were some of the initial hurdles that you had to navigate the minute you landed at LAX?
Someplace to stay. The school had mailed me, get that, mailed, no email, had mailed me this 8x11 envelope that had like 10 pages of different places for housing. And, I'd been at my parents' home, running up their phone bill, calling all these places in California, only to be told that, oh, well, that place is taken. Well, come see us when you get here. All the rent is $400 or $500. And to an 18-year-old who had never really earned any, I had some odd jobs, but, heck, minimum wage back then was like $2 or $3. It was crazy. Right. So the thought of paying $400 for anything, which is hilarious now, was just a foreign concept. So I wound up finding this place that was a hotel that was in downtown, which was not the best area, but heck, I grew up in not the best area, so it didn't bother me.
Right.
So I called a cab from LAX to the Cameo Hotel, which still exists downtown near MacArthur Park on 5th and Bonnie Bray. And when I left St. Louis to get this flight, I had a one-way ticket, so there was no coming back. And my parents gave me $100 at the airport, and I thought I was rich.
Right.
Things have changed quite a bit. So
yeah, absolutely.
the cab ride from LAX to the Cameo Hotel was $20. That's a good portion of all the money I had. It's probably like 80, 90, $100 now, if you take that same cab ride. But so I go into this spot. It's interesting. I'm looking around. Not a whole lot of people look like me. It's Latino, Spanish. Because the guy at the front desk, his English was broken, and I could tell he was a Spanish speaker. And I said, "Hey, you got a room?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How much?" $5. I'm like, "Okay." I think I paid for about 4 or 5 days, and just kind of managed to try to get it around. There was the bus strike because I was very comfortable with public transportation, but that wasn't available. So I did take a cab from the hotel to the university from 5th to 42nd Street, which didn't sound very far to me. But after I walked 2 or 3 times, I recognized, oh no, this is not. And I was in good shape. I was a athlete for 4 years, pretty decent. So I was still 60 pounds. Could still run, all those kind of things. So, I got on campus the first time, probably 10 days before school started, maybe 2 weeks. There was not nearly a soul on the campus. I was like, what the heck is this? And so I went a couple times, and then I just said I'd wait till the start of school. So a day or two before school started, I found a new way to get there with the thumb. I started hitchhiking. And, the thing about California is everybody loves everybody. Because I've done some things in California that I would not recommend. But,
like hitchhiking at 18, which is crazy, but that was a different time back then. And you were in a different state. It was far different from Missouri, and the people are friendly. They want some sure they found out you were going to USC, then they felt more comfortable.
Then we're alums, and what are you going to study? Really good, great school. After I mentioned that, usually it was a smooth ride. So that worked out. Then before school started, I got back down on campus, and there were people, a lot of people on campus at that point. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay, where are the black people at?
Like there's people, but where are my people?
Yeah,
I don't see my people.
right, absolutely. And then we did meet a fellow member of the African American persuasion, and he was walking around, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" I went over right away, and he must have thought I was crazy. And I just asked him, I said, I need to get my financial aid squared away. Who do I need to talk to? He said, well, go talk to Bobby over in the financial aid office, and she takes care of the black students. Basically, is what he said. And I walked over there and asked for Bobby and this sister, very nice looking sister with a fro. And she said, "Oh, you got your admission letter?" I gave her my letter, and she took me over to her desk. She started typing on this big desktop, and 20 minutes later, my tuition was paid. I had Pell Grants. I had a scholarship. There was something else she gave me. I can't remember, but then I did have some couple of student loans that I had. When I graduated, I probably had $6,000-7,000 total in student loans, which is not
isn't
terrible.
bad at all. It's not
No,
bad at
not
all.
bad at all. I in my business, I work with clients and looking at credit reports. Some of these, like teachers, they have 80, 120 $140,000 in student loans, which
Mm.
I find reprehensible. And then some doctors that I've worked with, $300,000 in student loans. That is just, that's just unconscionable. But,
Yeah.
that's kind of what, and that is maybe one of the things that motivates me to work with our students in our scholarship program, because I don't just work with them for our scholarships. Since I've been doing this for so long, I have an inventory of different scholarships that, they can apply for that are, nationally based, not only for high school graduates, but for college students also. We maintain a Facebook page that we post everything we can. Gates Millennium Scholarships, there's a Coca-Cola scholarship. Those are the larger ones. And you kind of target the students. We have, like our last group of scholarship winners, we had 2 valedictorians with 4.0 unweighted GPAs. In fact, I think the lowest GPA for this past year scholarship winners was like 3.4. And that was the lowest. We had 3.6, 3.8. 2 valedictorians. We have our first kid, because the scholarship program has been in place over 20 years before I got there. So they have been doing this for a long time. We had our first kid going to Yale.
And this is with your chapter, correct?
Yeah, that's with my chapter.
Okay.
Going to Yale. We just had a kid graduate from USC. Yep. Right on. And then we actually have another young lady who's a senior there, who's pre-med, and she's graduating this year. We had a kid graduate from Morehouse last year. We got a kid who's a sophomore there at Morehouse. So we have kids pretty much all over, even some schools I never heard of. Like, okay, I don't even know what it is. Like I got a kid at Adams College somewhere that plays lacrosse, and I'm like, okay. So it doesn't matter as long as they get into a school that's going to accommodate them, and we do try to work with them in terms of not only as coming out of high school but college. We have 24 African American male students in colleges all over the country right now. A lot of them they're all based out of Las Vegas, so majority of them stay local, and probably have 8 or 9 of them that are at University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, the Running Rebels, as everybody knows by. And we basically try to support them. I've had conference calls we got a student at Arizona State. He was having some issues with financial aid, so we got on the call with the financial aid department, and he was, a lot of these students are very proactive, which I love to see, because it really sets them up for success moving forward. But I work with a lady in Las Vegas. She goes by the Scholarship Doctor, and we've had a relationship for probably, 15 years. And that's all she does is work with students to provide them with financial aid. And, she refers a lot of her students to us. And, they're typically very well prepared. So that's kind of my story.
I want to just rewind, because obviously you're a member of the fraternity and you joined the fraternity. You've been in for an extended period of time. You've managed to do some incredible things in and out of the fraternity. But I wanted to ask you, what led you to joining the fraternity? And I give you the opportunity to share with our viewers and listeners what led you and when you in fact joined the fraternity at Lambda chapter.
You want dates? Oh yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, I got some miles on me, but I'm proud of where I am in terms of how I am still able to participate and contribute. But I graduated from high school in 1974. Started in September '74 at the University of Southern California. There was another Greek organization on campus before. We'd had the chapter there at Lambda. It was actually chartered in May of 1923. It is the oldest chapter west of the Mississippi. Actually, it's not, because St. Louis, where I'm from, was chartered in 1922. But We're
Mhm.
the oldest chapter in the district, the 12th district, which is 10 Western states.
Right.
And the thing about Lambda in those days, even though it was chartered at USC, it was what we call the intermediate chapter.
Mhm.
So even though there wasn't a real strong presence on the campus, there was a chapter that was active that was made up of graduates and also undergraduates from other campuses. So even though USC didn't have much of a presence, they were still doing things in the community based on having an active organization. And basically, what got me to say, okay, this is going to work for me is, like I said, there was another organization on campus, and I was just kind of unimpressed with what I saw. I won't even go into it. But then when the brothers came on the yard, they seemed kind of like me, but down to earth. And, they talked a good game in terms of the tenets of the fraternity and the brotherhood. And honestly, I missed that. I really did. From, you know, my closest ties in high school were always in the locker room. My
Right.
my warriors from track and from football. Those were the guys that, I was friendly with. And, I found out I was more popular in high school than I realized because I was a little bit slow. Yeah. And I'm actually still kind of slow in that regard, but we're working on it. So I actually went to what they call a smoker, and we started June of 76, and then I crossed 16 weeks later, September 13th, 1976.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it was an interesting time.
And I'm sure that shaped you from that early age into the man that we see today.
The good thing about the chapter was it was so integral in the district, in that a lot of the other chapters throughout the district, if you looked at the folks that started those chapters, the genesis was from the Lambda chapter. Plus, some of the people that started the chapter were one of the first black judges,
Mm.
Thomas Griffin and his brother, both judges. But then they had this world-renowned architect who was a member, who came through in the 20s, who just world famous. Just a lot of those types of people
Mhm.
were part of the chapter starting, and I'm very happy with the membership. And I was pushed into leadership fairly quickly. Like 1 year after I crossed, I was the vice bossless, or the vice president. And it's kind of like they said, we want you to do this. And I didn't know any better or how to say no. And I'm like, okay. And then the next year I was the bossless. And we actually got very active. In fact, they were working on recruiting some of the more undergraduates at USC recently, and they have done a good job. And thanks to the advisor Louis Cortez, who came through Lambda in 2000, and he's doing a good job with the young men. I was watching virtually. They had a probate show. I think there were 6 young men. Three of them went to SC. I know one went to UCLA, Cal State, LA, because they still, it's only undergrads now, but they still take in young men from different campuses that do not have a chapter. And what amazed me is they had each of these young men introduce themselves, and I'm listening, and I'm like, I never would have made it, because the lowest GPA was 3.4, and they went up from there, like 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.8. I'm like, oh, well, okay. So,
Mhm.
they're getting good quality young men who are academically focused based on scholarship, and I thought that was outstanding. Well, for the time that I was still active with the chapter, and because it was undergraduate and graduate, I stayed financially with the chapter till 80, a couple years after I graduated. And then I went on to work for a couple years after I graduated in 78, and then decided, well, let's do the graduate school thing, and I got admitted to the Consortium for Graduate Study in Management. So I got a full fellowship and a stipend to go to school. Obviously, that you can't beat that. Where I had a small amount of student loans undergrad, I had zero debt for grad school. So it was a great situation.
That's great. Now, what field of study did you take up at USC, and then did you further immerse yourself into that same concentration after college?
I had a BS in business administration, and then I went to work in aerospace for a couple of years, which is a big industry in Southern California. Actually,
Mhm.
just probably nationally, really. The Boeing's and the Raytheons, and I worked for TRW at the time. And then when I went to grad school, I got an MBA in marketing. I was fortunate to get a decent job coming out of grad school. It was back to St. Louis, which looking at it now, maybe I should have looked around a little more and looked for other opportunities. So you're young and they make an offer and you're like, oh, okay. And I worked for one of the larger corporations there in St. Louis for about 3 to 4 years. And I was like, oh, this is like killing me. This is a grind. And I actually moved into real estate and got into real estate, got licensed. And, I was doing fair. It's a big difference between the top producers and everybody else. I never really quite got to that level. I've had some really good years. Then I met a guy and we became business partners. And he already had a real estate company. He did mostly property management and he had 4 or 5 agents. And that really wasn't his thing, working with the sales side. So he got me to come in and then we bought a Realty World franchise. I was a partner. He was basically a majority partner. And then after a few years, we grew the numbers pretty well. I think we got up to mid 20s in terms of realtors. And then we merged our office with another person that had an office out north. We were in the city. And, for the few years, I think we operated jointly for about 4 or 5 years. We were the largest Black owned real estate firm in Missouri. We had 2 offices with about 55, maybe a few more realtors. And so I ran the sales office. My original partner, he did all the property management. He managed probably about 400 rental units. And then the other partner that came on board, she managed the sales office out in the North County area. And we also had a contract for about 5 or 6 years to manage HUD foreclosures, uh, which was interesting.
Mhm.
It's not a bad deal. They pay you per property. It's not a lot, but the properties are vacant. So you're not collecting rent. All you have to do is inspect them once to twice a month. And so that was it. And make reports. And the other part of that I really loved is us as what we call the area managing broker. We were able to sell those properties. And since I was always in the office, we had people coming in and they'd already driven by and they were like, hey, I want to buy this house. I actually rarely had to show those properties and they would always want to already know, hey, I want to buy this house. I think one year I sold 50 of those HUD foreclosures. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe 60. Yeah. And that was just because I was in the office and these people would come in. Now, if some of the agents were there, I would let the agent handle it, but most of the
Mhm.
time they were out. So yeah, I sold about 50 of those properties one year. And plus, I had some other business that I did. I got involved with the National Black MBA Association. If you get a chance to go to a National Black MBA Association national conference, do it. It is a beautiful thing. It absolutely is. And I got those kind of customers who were very successful corporate executives in a lot of regards. And, it was a great organization. I learned a lot. A lot of the things that I brought to Vegas were things that I learned from the National Black MBA Association. I did eventually become the St. Louis chapter president, which was another learning experience. But they do talk you through the fundraising part. because even back then, I was president in 98, 99. We had about $120,000 operating budget. Like I said, 1998, 99, we had that large of a budget. Plus, we had about $150,000 in the bank back then.
Thinking about starting your own business? Make it real with Shopify, the all-in-one platform trusted by millions to sell online and in person. Whether it's merch, art, or digital goods, Shopify gives you the tools to build, grow, and succeed. And here's the best part. When you sign up using the affiliate link in our show notes, you're supporting Prepare for Takeoff and starting your business off right. Click the link and start your free trial today. I'm very familiar with the organization. I'm sure our viewers and listeners are as well. But from what I'm hearing, you've always been entrepreneurial minded. Is that a safe assessment? Or is that something that developed as time went on?
Well, I think it's something that's kind of developed because I work for a bank now and I really like the bank. But what I like about it is that we offer a wide range of products from conventional government loans, new construction. We can do non-warrantable condos. We do commercial, and we actually, like I said, new construction. We actually will finance the building of a house from the ground up. Not a lot of banks do that, and they have a system in place. We do HELOCs, we do personal loans, and I've had customers do all those. We do HECMs, which are actually reverse mortgages. I just closed one of those for a senior citizen, put them in a great position where they no longer have a mortgage payment. And when they closed, they walked away with, I think, about $60,000. And in a year, they'll have like $140,000 line of credit. So they're set. So, I like that we offer, and the other thing I like is we are able to do loans in all 50 states.
Okay.
Even though my biggest client is in New Jersey, but they're an investor and they own about 70 houses in Las Vegas. But I've done about a half dozen deals for them in New Jersey, done deals in California, Thousand Oaks, Big Bear, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama. I don't know how I got down in the South like that, but we've done deals there, Pennsylvania, just and the bank being federally chartered allows us to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, did that come as a result of what you were doing as an entrepreneur?
Well, I got into banking per se when I relocated from St. Louis and moved to Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
I picked up and moved there, and then that's where I got hired by Ascendant at the time, and they trained us in a call center to originate mortgages. So I did that for 3 years. I mean, it was intensive because at some point in time, we had a goal. Everyone on our floor, as we called it, had a goal for a month where we would have a goal to originate 80 mortgages in a month. Yeah. So you basically on the phone working it. You have to know the guidelines. And it was a great experience for me. And then when I felt the need to basically flee Jacksonville.
It's time to go.
Yeah, it was time to go. And then I got the opportunity to move to Las Vegas, was transferred. They had field positions. And it was a great marriage of my skill set because it was working. Ascendant at that time was the largest real estate entity in the world. We had Ascendant Mortgage, but we also owned the brand names for Coldwell Banker, Century 21. So all those franchises were leased or provided through Ascendant. So, that's like 10,000 real estate offices across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked in the mortgage division, and that was a great learning experience for me and really set me up for when I took this field position in Las Vegas, which was working in initially the Coldwell Banker office. Then I moved over to the Century 21 and the ERA office. And since I'd been a realtor for so many years, it was just second nature for me.
Then at some point you found the time to found Omega Black Writers. So what led to that?
I started to be an active reader probably in my mid-30s. And, I, like everybody else, didn't have time for books or reading. And I just happened to go to an event in St. Louis called the Missouri Black Expo, which was a big event that they had every year down at the convention center. They must have had 700-800 vendors in there. And, I would go down there just to kind of look around. And, they would have some people marketing books, and I saw an author, and I just kind of went over and chatted with her, and I bought a book. I didn't held on to her book for 2 years. It was like just sitting on the table. And I was going on a trip to, I think, maybe the National Black MBA Conference. And I said, let me grab this book. So I read the book on the plane there and back. By the time I got back on the plane, I read the book. And I was like, oh, that was nice. And I just started reading. Since then, become a very avid reader. Walter Mosley is my favorite writer. And I have told the guys that have participated in the Omega Black Writers that I'm going to read all their books, but every time we have a new event, I fall farther behind. So out of the 41 books that we've had discussed, I've gotten through 17 of them. So
that's good.
Yeah, well, I need to do better. I've really fallen off the wagon the last couple years. So, but, we'll get back on track. But the emphasis of starting it was in like June, July of 2021. I'm on social media quite a bit because of the things we promote with the fraternity, and then also work encourages us to have a good social media presence. So I just noticed over the course of a couple of years that we had 5 members of a fraternity in Las Vegas that published books. And I like, boy, that's a lot. And then I just started thinking about that we should be able to promote this. So that was, like I said, June, July. And then I started making some calls. I called Gerald Curry because I had known him. He had been in Vegas for a few years. He was at that time the defense wing commander for Nellis Air Force Base, a full bird colonel. But he also was a writer, and he and his brother own and operate Curry Brothers Publishing, and have been doing so for probably about 25 years now. So I called him. He was very supportive. And I also maybe spoke with George Taylor in Pasadena, who is the Fatherhood and Mentoring Chair for the 12th District, and just a few other people. They both were extremely supportive. And I said, hey, let's go ahead and plan something. So in November 11th of 21, we did our first Omega Black Writers podcast broadcast. I had, not knowing what to expect, we had 6 writers signed up. But actually what it was is I had 10 committed before I started the first event. And what happened was one of them, who was going to be that first 6, I do remember his mom passed away. So he was out of town, and, obviously. So we went with 5 writers, and we got through it. It went well, and everybody was real pleased with what happened. And then that next group, I think we had 4. And that's when we settled on 4 being a good number. We've done 3 and 4 since then, and it's worked out. We have a program, and everybody is aware of what we're asking, and we ask them to rehearse their answers so they can be very timely. But, I've been very impressed with each of the writers. I mean, like I said, I've read 17 of their books. I haven't been disappointed, but that's me. I'm a reader. Everybody's not a reader. But what I will tell you is there is something that one of our writers has published that will pique your interest, whether it's education, whether it's fiction, which we are getting more of, fiction writers. Right now we've had 3, and I'm really excited about one of the ones that's joined us last 2 weeks ago. He has
Mhm.
a science fiction book. Science fiction. We've not had science fiction. So, and he's getting some very strong online support for his book.
So now this is a forum. Is it something beyond the pod? I just want to unpack it for our viewers and listeners. So they have this group of writers that they're a part of, and does that forum consist of a podcast? And does it consist of other components, or is it just primarily the podcast? And then people who are part of the Omega Black Writers, they join in pairs of threes and fours, and this is something that they kind of talk viewers and listeners through their books.
We have a program. They talk about their books. We ask them to introduce themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we ask them to talk about their books. We ask them to talk about the process of writing their book, the process of finding a publisher. We ask them about any tips they have for anyone else who has a story to tell and how to get it published. And fortunately, some of our writers are actually resources. Like Gerald Curry, since he operates a publishing company, he's a great resource. He's written 3 books personally. He's ghostwritten 7. His company has ghostwritten 19, and he's working with some pretty high level people. I mean, his book on leadership was endorsed by Colin Powell.
Wow.
And Senator Reid from Nevada, who used to be the Senate Majority Leader, who recently passed away 3 or 4 years ago. So both of them endorsed his books. We have this last group. We had a judge from Miami-Dade who's written 30 books. Yeah, and we have a lot of educators. We had one number of principals, a number who worked for the different school districts. We've had guys from Florida, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Georgia, California, Nevada, Jamaica. A brother from Jamaica and another one from Shanghai, China. So we're pretty much everywhere. And one of the other things we do is try to promote these individuals for speaking engagements, because some of them do that. A couple of them are one or two of them are full-time speakers. That's what they do. And I know some of them are working toward getting to that. And they're very bright and articulate. Of that group of 10 that we started with, 6 of them had doctorates. So I'm a great numbers guy. For 6 out of 10 Black males to have doctorates, that is way outside the norm. Because I think males, in general, in terms of the population of PhDs, they're only like 4% or less. African American females are much higher. But for us to have that kind of representation in education, in fact, out of the 39 writers, I'm going to have to go back through there and see, but I'd be surprised if not maybe 20 or 25 of them didn't have doctorates.
Man, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's one of the things we want the people to know, that we do have scholars, researchers that are very interested in doing scholarly work and supporting our community with scholarship, encouraging others to get that education. I have somewhat of an ongoing dispute with some of my peers about direction that we need to be in terms of whether we need to continue to focus on asking our students to actively pursue college, especially now with this AI and challenges to financial aid and, just basically DEI not being, because, there are a lot of colleges that did have scholarships based on, race, and a lot of that is going away. So it's even more important that we are able to support our students and provide them with the opportunities and train them how to get there. Sometimes they just don't know. They don't have the resources at home. I know I didn't. everything. I filled out my application. I don't even know that my parents even looked at it. We do have 11 broadcasts that are all posted on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and Google Omega Black Writers. If there's a particular writer that you want to correspond with, we do have social media, Facebook and Instagram. And you can simply send us a message and we'll put them in touch with you. And we're actually working on some other things that are kind of in the works. I've always had a goal to make this a bigger opportunity for our writers. So we're working on that now. And hopefully we'll be able to pull something together for them. I kind of initially looked at a speakers bureau.
Okay.
And I looked at there's plenty of them. And, there's some that, they pay their speakers, $3,000 a pop. There's some that their speakers make a couple $100,000. Those are those were like the Barack Obamas, the Colin Powells, if you want 25 minutes of their time, you're going to pay a lot. So
Les Brown, all of those guys.
Yeah. In fact, at the Missouri Black Expo that I mentioned, he used to come in and be one of the speakers. But yeah, so he's been around for a long time. George Frazier, another guy that's on the speaking trail. So yeah, we do. We've done quite a bit to try to promote reading, scholarship, and participating in expanding those opportunities for people. A lot of people don't think they know they have a good story. They just don't know the steps to get a book published. And that's where, Gerald Curry, that's what he does. He's full-time promoting Curry Brothers Publishing. He's retired Air Force 2 times. And as a civilian contractor, he was hired back after he retired as the Judge Advocate General, one of the Judge Advocate Generals for the Air Force, with a responsibility of about 7,000 hearings a year. So, but he is kind of typical of what we got, in terms of the people who participate in this program. But yeah, I do recommend, if you want to kind of catch up and take a look at what we do, hit us up on YouTube.
Bro, that's amazing work you're doing. And to highlight the fact that not only are these men doing phenomenal things, their backstories are incredible. These are all members of our fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And when you think of the fraternity, people outside of the fraternity, they may not be fully aware of the type of individuals that the fraternity consists of. I know, I've been in the fraternity for 34 plus years. You've been in longer than me, but to just have a platform to highlight the caliber of individuals that are in the fraternity and that are taking the steps and showing people what steps to take to tell their stories, that's incredible.
It's been invigorating for me. Like you said, I've been around for a while, but this program has a lot of these brothers were brothers I probably would have never otherwise met. So this has allowed me to really expand my contacts and connections, and in a lot of cases, put them in touch with other people that they didn't know to help them with their journey. And that's been very rewarding. One of my strengths is being a connector. By having lived in this coast and that coast and in between and moved around, I've met a lot of people, and I'm big on community service. And by spending so much time giving to others, you really do make some really strong connections with people. I can call some people that will take my call that, it's like, you can call him? Oh yeah, I can call him. I don't, because I'm not that person just to idly call people. But if I call, they know, well, Jerry's calling, maybe he needs something and he's going to do this and that for me. And I think helping others is a reward in itself.
This episode of Prepare for Takeoff is brought to you in part by Riverside, the platform that I trust to record studio quality podcasts right from my laptop. With Riverside, I get crystal clear audio and 4K video. Plus, it's super easy to use. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, Riverside helps your podcast sound amazing. Try it out for yourself. Click the affiliate link in our show notes and start recording like a pro with Riverside. What you're doing is incredible work, and you're leading in so many different capacities. As an entrepreneur, founding Omega Black Writers, you're leading in finance, you're doing things in real estate, bruh. You're the epitome of an Omega man who subscribes to all of our cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. So salute to you and all of what it is you're doing. As we close out, I want to give you the opportunity to leave our viewers and listeners with 3 things that you feel will help them prepare for takeoff.
Be intentional. I am somebody who thinks about a lot of things, and you really kind of have to focus on what you want to accomplish. So be intentional about a plan and how you want to move and how you want to get things done. A lot of times it involves educating yourself so you understand. And if you're not doing something, but you can identify others who are in a space that you want to be in, volunteer, observe them, interact with them. And then the second thing is be selective with who you surround yourself. With family, you don't have that option of picking who's going to be your brother, your sister, your parents. But in other regards, you want to try to surround yourself with people who aspire higher, who accomplish many things that you would want to accomplish in your life. So surround yourself with positive people. It's easy, and I still struggle with that on occasion, with negativism. But even if the worst circumstances happen to you, there is always someone else who has a worse situation. So you try to keep that in perspective. I had some health issues going back 3 or 4 years ago, and I've gotten past it. And I really think I handled it pretty well in terms of not allowing it to mentally drain me or become a negative factor. It is what it is, because my line brother, he just like within 3-4 months ago just had a liver transplant. And then one of our other good friends who crossed on the line afterwards, he just had heart surgery. And I was very conscientious about checking in with them, having some of our friends rally around to make sure that they got their support. His wife, who I've known, they've been married 25, 30 years. I don't know. And, so she knows me. But after she saw how we rallied to support her husband, she said, Jerry, I'm going to have to introduce you to one of my girlfriends. I've known her 25 years. She's never even mentioned that, introducing me to anybody. And all of a sudden, I'm this good guy, which is fine.
Right.
I mean, okay.
Right.
Too
late than never.
And the third thing I say, just have fun. Life is too short. I tell people all the time who fret about others, what you're doing is you're giving them control over your mentality, over you. It's easy to get angry at someone or to say that person this or that. But think about it. Is that how you want to spend your life? Time is finite. Do you want to spend your time dwelling on the bad things, the injustices, the things that other people have done? Or do you want to spend your life trying to enjoy the time that we all have? And it is harder than it sounds, but I kind of decided some time ago, and I still struggle with that. I still get pissed off at the bros because I think, well, we should have better attendance at this community service event. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And, because of the recent health issues I had, I stepped down from a lot of the things that I was doing for the chapter. But I continue to work on scholarship because I'm committed to our youth. And, but I've actually stepped down as our scholarship chair. And we have 3 or 4 people who've been on the committee, one as long or longer than me, and the other 3 I recruited in the last 3 or 4 years. So they all kind of understand how that process works. But those are the 3 things I would suggest. Just remember, life is too short. to spend a day tripping on anybody, your boss, your spouse, or your best friend. I mean, deal with it and take it in and move on.
Great advice, bruh. I couldn't have said it better. I think that life is short, as you mentioned, and as we get older, you begin to realize how short life truly is. I
Right.
know growing up, when I was in high school, let alone younger than that, when people would say, "Oh, you're getting so big, you're growing up so fast." Jerry, I thought they were just making small talk because I didn't feel like I was getting any bigger than my friends. I wasn't growing up any faster than anybody else. But then as time goes on and you watch your nieces, your nephews, and now my daughter who's 12, you see how fast they grow up. Now you find yourself saying the same things to your nieces and nephews and your daughter as was all the things that was said to you growing up. And then the different phases that we find ourselves at in life, you then begin to realize how short life truly is. You do have to really make life what you want it to be. And you have to obviously keep God first. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people, Jerry, it's imperative to pursue your passion because life isn't going to be a glass staircase. So if you're passionate about something that you want to do, then it'll make it a lot easier for you to persevere through those times of difficulty. Because if you're pursuing an outcome and the outcome doesn't come fast enough, then you might be more likely to exit off that freeway to success, maybe one or two exits prematurely. But if you're passionate about something, if you're committed to something, you're committed to scholarship, you're committed to the youth, I'm committed to trying to empower other individuals in our community and amplifying Black excellence, then whatever comes with that, I'm here for it because this is what I want to do. I enjoy doing it. It's not about what the outcome is going to be. It's not about the monetary components of what pursuit may ultimately end up being. Because I think sometimes when people are pursuing those trophies, they realize that those trophies don't come without practice. And that's why you find people starting something, quitting something, starting something, quitting something. You have to fall in love with the process that ultimately ends up leading to success. And if you don't do that, then you may be doing yourself a disservice. But I don't want to do our viewers and listeners a disservice without giving them the opportunity to figure out how they can plug in with you, whether that's on social media, website, email, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing with our viewers and listeners.
Well, personally, I'm on pretty much all the major things that old people do. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I have a LinkedIn page, and you can basically reach me through all those. But you could also reach me through Omega Black Writers. Just Google Omega Black Writers series on Facebook or Instagram, and any of those messages I do receive and respond. And so I'm not hard to find. People who say, "Oh, I've been looking for you." Y'all just ain't looking because I ain't hard to find at all. But Terry, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully, some of your viewers will get something out of it. And please keep an eye out for our next Omega Black Writers, which will probably be in the spring. Like I said, I got another 40 of our proud brethren that are published and looking to. In fact, I have one guy that was going to participate in the last group, and then he found out he had a speaking engagement on that date. So he already has submitted everything he needed. So I already got one set up for the next event.
That's awesome. Well, I will definitely be on the lookout, and I'll be sure to spread the word to make certain that people, both in the fraternity as well as outside of the fraternity, are aware of the good work that you're doing with Omega Black Writers and all of the other things you're doing. Let's continue success, man. Thanks for giving us so much of your time. And I also wanted to thank our viewers and listeners, whether you're watching us on YouTube or you're watching us on Spotify or you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, iHeart, or Pandora. As you know, every week we're going to continue to bring you proven professionals or rising entrepreneurs. And all of these conversations, just like this one, will help you prepare for takeoff. Jerry, thanks for joining us, bruh.
It's been a pleasure, team. I really have enjoyed the opportunity. I thank you for allowing me to be here today.